My brother stood at the head of our mother's dining room table, in our father's old chair, and told me to sign over half of my townhouse, or he would drag me into a courtroom. He called it repaying the family. He called it doing the right thing. What he did not know, what none of them knew, was that I had spent the past 3 weeks going through 6 years of his business records, and what I found had nothing to do with me. Make sure you're subscribed to RK Revenge Power. You will not want to miss what happens next. I bought my townhouse on a Tuesday in March. I was 28 years old, and I cried in the parking lot of the title company for about 10 minutes before I could drive home. Not because I was sad, because I had been working toward that moment since I was 19, and sharing a dorm room with 2 strangers, and eating peanut butter crackers for dinner 3 nights a week. I had clawed my way through college on a partial scholarship and 2 part-time jobs, graduated with a degree in business administration, and talked my way into an entry-level position at a mid-sized insurance company in Columbus. I stayed late. I took on extra work. I moved up. By 26, I was a junior fraud investigator. By 27, I was leading my own caseload. I was good at finding things people thought were hidden. I was very, very good at it. The townhouse was modest. 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, a little patch of yard in the back that needed work. But it was mine. I had saved the down payment over 4 years, living in a studio apartment and eating lunch at my desk and turning down vacations. I had done every single piece of it myself. My father, who had passed away 3 years earlier from a sudden heart attack, would have been proud. He was the one who used to say that nobody could ever take away what you built with your own hands. I believed him. My mother did not call to congratulate me. I found that strange but not alarming. She had been distracted and distant since my father died, folded entirely into my older brother. My brother Marcus was 34, 6 years older than me, and he had taken over my father's heating and cooling business after the funeral. He ran it out of the same shop on the east side of town. He drove my father's old truck. He sat in my father's chair. He had absorbed everything my father left behind and wrapped himself in it like a coat. I called my mother the evening after closing. She picked up on the 3rd ring. "I just wanted to tell you," I said. "I got the house. It's official. I'm a homeowner." There was a pause. Not a warm pause, a calculating one. "Marcus mentioned you were doing that," she said. "I've been saving for years. I'm really proud of myself, Mom." "I'm sure you are," she said. And then, before I could respond, "We should all sit down together soon. Marcus has some things he wants to discuss." I should have known then. I should have recognized the flatness in her voice, the way she said we and Marcus, as if they were already one unit, and I was a visitor requesting an audience. But I was still warm from the title company, still holding those keys, still believing that my family would eventually find a way to be happy for me. I said, "Sure, absolutely. Let's plan something soon." We hung up. The dinner happened 2 weeks later on a Saturday. My mother made pot roast, which meant something serious was coming. She only made pot roast for funerals and hard conversations. Marcus was already there when I arrived, sitting at the dining room table with a folder in front of him. His wife stayed home. My mother was moving quietly in the kitchen, not looking at me. I sat down. Marcus folded his hands on top of the folder. He had our father's broad shoulders, and none of our father's warmth. "We need to talk about contributions," he said. I looked at him. "What do you mean?" "To the family. To what this family built. What Dad built." He tapped the folder. "When you were in college, Dad used business revenue to help cover your living expenses. Not your tuition, but your rent, your groceries, the car insurance on the car he let you use. We kept records." I felt something cold move through me, slow and deliberate like water under ice. "Dad helped me a little," I said carefully. "He sent me some money a few times. I was grateful for it." "It wasn't a little," Marcus said. He opened the folder and slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a typed list. Numbers, dates, $89,000 over 4 years. "That came out of the business, Mia. My business now. The business I run. The business that keeps Mom comfortable." I looked at the paper. The numbers were real. Some of the dates matched actual help I had received. Others I did not recognize at all. The total, $89,000, was more than double what I remembered receiving. "Marcus," I said slowly. "Dad gave me money to help with rent a few times, maybe groceries. It was not $89,000. The records show what they show," he said. His voice was patient and deliberate, the voice of a man who had rehearsed this. My mother came in from the kitchen then and sat down at the end of the table. She did not pour anyone coffee. She did not look at me directly. "We're not trying to be unfair," she said to the centerpiece. "We just think that now that you have an asset, it would be right for you to give something back to the business that helped you get there." "Give something back," I repeated. "Marcus has a proposal," she said. Marcus pulled a second sheet from the folder. "You add my name to the deed of the townhouse as a co-owner. In exchange, we consider the debt settled. You live there. I'm on paper. When you sell, we split the equity." I sat very still. The dining room smelled like pot roast and something else underneath it that I could not name. After a moment, I recognized it. It was my father's absence. The chair Marcus was sitting in still had the slight lean to the left that my father always complained about and never fixed. "No," I said. Marcus looked at me the way he used to look at me when we were kids, and I said something he thought was beneath him to respond to. "No is not really an option here," he said. "It's my house," I said. "I paid for it. I saved for it. Whatever Dad gave me when I was in college, I was grateful for it. But it was a gift. That is not a debt. We have documentation," he said. "You have a typed list you made yourself," I said. "That's not documentation. That's a Word document." My mother made a small sound. Not quite a word. More like the sound of someone choosing not to intervene. Marcus closed the folder. He looked at me the way my father never looked at anyone, like a door closing. "Then we'll let a lawyer sort it out," he said. I drove home with my hands at 10 and 2, breathing through my nose. I told myself it was a bluff. I told myself Marcus was posturing, that he would cool down, that my mother would talk sense into him. I told myself all of that, and I almost believed it, until the certified letter arrived 11 days later from an actual law firm in downtown Columbus. It was a formal demand. It alleged that I had received substantial financial support from my father's business during my college years, support that constituted a constructive contribution to my ability to accumulate the assets I now held, including the down payment on my townhouse. It alleged that by purchasing the townhouse without acknowledging or repaying this contribution, I had been unjustly enriched at the expense of the business, which my brother now controlled. It demanded that I either add my brother as a co-owner of the property within 45 days or face a civil lawsuit seeking recovery of $89,000 plus interest and legal fees. I read it twice. Then I sat down on my second-hand couch in my still mostly unfurnished townhouse and stared at the wall for a long time. My father built that business with his best friend, a man named Ray, who had bought out his share when he retired 6 years ago. My father ran it alone after that, and he was meticulous. He kept every record. He paid his taxes on time, every quarter, without exception. He was the most honest man I had ever known. The idea that he would have considered small gifts to his college-aged daughter a business expense, a loan, a debt to be collected, it would have horrified him. It was a lie told using real numbers and real dates, dressed up in legal language to scare me into compliance. What Marcus did not know was that I spent my professional life taking apart lies dressed in exactly that way. My first call was to an attorney named Miss Chen, whom I found through a referral from a colleague. She was small and precise, and had eyes that moved over documents the way a scanner moves over text, methodically and without missing anything. "They can file this," she told me. "Whether it goes anywhere is a different question. The constructive trust argument is genuinely thin here. Gift money from a parent to a child, even when it comes from business accounts, does not typically create a debt. But they can cost you. Discovery alone would run you $15,000. They're counting on you to fold." "I'm not going to fold," I said. "Then we need leverage," she said. "Something that makes this lawsuit more dangerous for them than for you." "I think I have something," I said. "I need a little time." What I had was not a feeling or a hunch. It was a memory, a specific, quiet, unignorable memory from 4 years ago, 6 months after my father died. I had gone to the shop to help Marcus go through some of my father's old paper files, the ones my father kept in 2 tall cabinets in the back office. Marcus wanted them organized, and I had offered because I thought it would help and because I needed to feel close to my father. I spent 3 weekends in that office. I went through every folder. And I was a fraud investigator. So even when I was not trying to analyze something, I was analyzing it. I noticed a pattern in the vendor payments. Starting about 8 months after my father died, there were new vendors, a subcontractor called Meridian HVAC Supply, a parts supplier called Central States Mechanical. Both appeared regularly in the accounts payable records Marcus had started keeping digitally, both paid by ACH transfer on a monthly basis, both showing up as legitimate business expenses. I had not said anything then. I told myself there was probably a straightforward explanation. Marcus had taken over a business. He was building new supplier relationships. It was not my place. But I had written down the names. I had written them down on a piece of paper. I folded up and put in my laptop bag, and I had never thrown it away. I still had that piece of paper. I work in insurance fraud investigation. I know how to find a shell company. I know what a ghost vendor scheme looks like. I know the footprints it leaves in public records, in Secretary of State filings, in bank routing numbers, in addresses that turn out to be UPS stores or vacant lots. I know how to build a timeline from fragments. I know how to make a spreadsheet that tells a story any jury could follow. I spent 3 weeks doing exactly that after work, sitting at my kitchen table until midnight, running searches, pulling records, cross-referencing dates. I was careful. I was thorough. I was, for the first time since the letter arrived, not afraid. Meridian HVAC Supply had been registered with the Ohio Secretary of State 14 months after my father died. The registered agent's address was a mailbox rental facility on the west side of Columbus. The company had no website. It had no reviews. It had no presence of any kind except the registration and a business checking account. The account's routing number traced to a small regional bank. I could not access the account directly, but I did not need to. I just needed to show the pattern. Central States Mechanical was even sloppier. It had been registered in Indiana. The registered agent was listed as Marcus himself, using a middle name he never used, which I recognized only because I had seen it once on his driver's license years ago. The address was an empty commercial unit in Indianapolis that had been for lease since the year it was registered. I pulled 6 years of the business's publicly available tax filings through my professional access. The deductions for subcontractor payments had increased significantly and consistently beginning 14 months after my father's death. I built a side-by-side comparison of what the business paid in subcontractor costs when my father was alive versus after. The difference was not explainable by inflation or growth. It was a number that sat there on my screen and refused to be anything other than what it was: $267,000, over 5 years, paid to vendors that did not exist, controlled by the man sitting in my father's chair, threatening to sue me for $89,000 he made up. Miss Chen reviewed my file. She read every page. When she looked up, her expression was the closest thing to impressed I had ever seen on her face. "This is a credible basis for a fraud referral," she said. "I'd want a forensic accountant to verify your methodology before we use this formally, but as leverage," she paused. "As leverage, this is a hand grenade." "I know," I said. "He doesn't just lose the lawsuit," she said. "He loses the business, potentially his freedom." Ohio takes financial fraud in a business context very seriously, and if any of those payments were run through accounts that touched estate assets. My father's business was still partially in probate for 18 months after he died, I said, which means some of the earliest transfers may have touched the estate directly. She set the file down. "Mia, how did you find all of this?" "I was looking," I said. "I'm always looking." She filed our response to the demand letter that Friday. It was cool and precise. It stated that the claims were factually inaccurate and legally unsupported, that the alleged documentation would not survive scrutiny, that we rejected the demand in full and would vigorously defend any lawsuit filed, including seeking full recovery of our legal costs. It did not mention what I had found. That part was for the meeting. My brother's lawyer requested a family mediation before filing suit. Miss Chen advised me against going. I overruled her, politely. I told her I needed to do this in person and I knew what I was doing. I think she believed me. She gave me a very specific set of instructions and told me to call her the moment I walked out. The mediation was held in a conference room at my brother's lawyer's office. The room had carpet, the color of old mustard, and a long table that was trying very hard to look more expensive than it was. My brother sat on one side with his attorney, a soft-spoken man named Patterson, who had a kind face that did not match his job. My mother sat next to Marcus. She was wearing the blouse she wore to my father's funeral, which I could not decide was meaningful or coincidental. I sat across from them. I had my laptop in a folder, and nothing else. Patterson opened by saying this was an opportunity to find a resolution that preserved the family relationship and allowed everyone to move forward with dignity. He said my brother and mother were not interested in conflict. They were interested in fairness. He said the word fairness 3 times in 4 sentences. I let him finish. Then I opened my laptop. Before we talk about fairness, I said, I want to talk about 2 companies, Meridian HVAC Supply and Central States Mechanical. My mother looked confused. Patterson looked politely neutral. My brother went the color of old concrete. I don't know what you're talking about, Marcus said. His voice was flat, but his right hand, resting on the table, had gone very still. You do, I said. I turned the laptop screen so they could all see. Meridian HVAC Supply was registered in Ohio on this date. I pointed. 14 months after Dad died. The registered agent address is a mailbox rental. There is no physical location. There are no employees. There is no operational history of any kind. Between this date and this date, your business made 43 payments to this vendor, totaling approximately $112,000. Patterson was writing something on his notepad. My mother was looking at Marcus. Marcus was looking at me with an expression I had never seen on him before, and recognized immediately. It was the same expression I saw on people at work when the case was over and they knew it. Central States Mechanical, I continued, clicking to the next screen, is registered in Indiana. The registered agent is listed as a variation of your own name at an address that has been commercially vacant since the date of registration. This company received 57 payments from your business over 4 years, totaling approximately $155,000. I looked up at him. Combined, Marcus, that's $267,000 paid to entities you control that provided no documented services to the business. These are private business records, he said. His voice had dropped. You have no right to access private. The business tax filings are not private, I said. The Secretary of State records are not private. I used public records and professional databases. I access legally every single day in my job. I kept my voice even. I was not angry in that room. Anger was not useful. You sued me for $89,000 you claimed. Dad gifted me from business funds. What I am showing you is $267,000 you paid to yourself out of the same business over the last 5 years. My mother made a sound. Not a word, just a sound. Small and broken, like something giving way. Diane, Patterson said quietly. Richard, she said to no one. My father's name, just his name, just once. This is slander, Marcus said. He was trying to find the old authority in his voice and not quite reaching it. You fabricated this. You're trying to intimidate me. Patterson, this is Mr. Patterson, I said. I want to make sure you are aware that if this lawsuit proceeds, my attorney will be seeking full discovery of 6 years of your client's business financial records, including vendor contracts, payment confirmations, and bank statements. That discovery process will verify everything I'm showing you right now. I closed the laptop. I am also prepared, today, this afternoon, to send this file to the Ohio Department of Taxation, the Ohio Secretary of State's office, and the county district attorney. I have contacts at all 3. The room was very quiet. The carpet seemed to absorb the silence. Drop the lawsuit, I said. I was looking at my brother. Drop it today. You will return to the business any funds that can be traced to these payments. You will have no further contact with me about my home, my finances, or anything else related to my personal assets. If I receive so much as another letter from any attorney you hire, I send this file to every authority I just named. And, I added, because Miss Chen had been very specific about this part, you should know that if any portion of those payments touch the estate during the probate period, you are looking at potential estate fraud charges in addition to business fraud. I suggest you verify that, with your own attorney, before we leave this room. Patterson was no longer writing. He was looking at my brother with a careful, detached expression that said he was already mentally calculating his next move, which had nothing to do with helping Marcus and everything to do with protecting himself. Marcus's jaw was tight. His hand on the table was no longer still. It was pressed flat, fingers spread, like a man trying to keep himself from tipping over. "Are we done?" I asked. My mother stood up. She did not look at me. She walked to the window and stood there with her back to the room, and her shoulders were shaking, and I understood then that whatever she had known and not known, whatever she had told herself to not have to look at too closely, it was becoming undeniable in real time. Patterson leaned over and spoke quietly to my brother. I did not hear what he said. Whatever it was, Marcus's expression shifted from rigid to something smaller. He nodded once, a tight, minimal nod. The nod of a man folding a hand. I gathered my folder and my laptop and stood. "I'll see myself out," I said. I called Miss Chen from the parking garage. My voice was calm, and my hands were shaking, which I thought was probably the correct proportion. I thought that would be the end of it. I had a reasonable right to believe the man would understand what he was looking at. But my brother, it turned out, had one more move he thought he could make. He could not fight me on the evidence. So he tried a different kind of attack. He started calling family. Extended family. Cousins. My mother's sister. Old friends of my father's. He told them I had gone through his private business records illegally. He told them I had threatened him. He told them I was unstable, that I had always been difficult, that losing my father had made me erratic and vindictive. He painted me as a daughter who had weaponized grief. He was my father's son as far as anyone in that circle was concerned, and his words carried weight that mine might not. I heard about it through my cousin, who called me genuinely worried, and said Marcus had told her I was in a dark place, and that the family was concerned. I thanked my cousin for telling me, and then I sat in my kitchen for a long time and thought about my father, who used to say that a person's character is what they do when they think no one is paying attention. My brother thought I would stop at the mediation room. He thought the implicit threat would be enough, and that I would go back to my townhouse and be quiet and call it a victory and leave the rest alone. He was not accounting for the fact that while he was making phone calls to relatives, I was making a different kind of call. I filed a formal fraud complaint with the Ohio Department of Taxation. I filed a separate referral with the County District Attorney's Financial Crimes Unit. I attached my full file, verified by the forensic accountant Miss Chen had retained to review my methodology. And I did one more thing that was harder than all of the others. I called my father's old business partner, Ray, who had bought out his share years ago and retired and still sent a card every Christmas. I told him what I had found. I told him all of it. Ray was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Your dad would have wanted to know." And then he said he was sorry. And I could hear that he meant it. The investigation moved faster than I expected. A financial crimes referral from a credentialed fraud investigator with a complete evidentiary file tends to do that. The DA's office contacted Miss Chen within 2 weeks. They had already begun subpoenaing bank records. What they found confirmed and exceeded what I had documented. The 2 shell companies were real. The payments were real. The money had moved into a personal account my brother had opened 6 months after my father's funeral. There was also a discovery I had not made myself. 3 of the earliest payments, made during the estate probate window, had been processed through an account that technically still belonged to my father's estate at the time of transfer. That made them something more than business fraud. My brother's own attorney, who by that point was no longer Patterson, filed a motion to suppress the estate-related charges on procedural grounds. The motion was denied. My mother called me on a Thursday evening. I almost did not pick up. I did, because she was still my mother, and because I was still someone who needed to know what she would say. He told me it was legitimate consulting work, she said. She was not crying. Her voice was dry and exhausted, the voice of someone who had been crying for days and was on the other side of it now. He showed me invoices. He told me it was how modern businesses operated. I didn't ask enough questions. I should have asked more questions. Mom, I said, I know what you're going to say. I'm not going to say anything. She was quiet for a moment. I shouldn't have sat in that room and let him do what he did to you. You came home to tell me you bought a house and She stopped. Your father would have been furious with me. He would have been sad, I said. There's a difference. The resolution came over the following 4 months, and it was not dramatic. There was no shouting, no final confrontation, no single moment of collapse. It was a long, unglamorous unraveling. My brother, facing felony fraud charges in 2 jurisdictions, entered into a plea negotiation with the DA's office. He pled guilty to 1 count of felony financial fraud and 1 count of improper conduct related to estate assets. He avoided prison in exchange for full restitution, 5 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, and the permanent revocation of his business license in Ohio. The business was liquidated. The shop my father built, the one with his name on a faded sign above the door, was sold at auction. The proceeds went into the restitution fund. My mother had to sell the house she and my father had lived in for 29 years to supplement it. She moved into a 2-bedroom apartment on the other side of town, and she took a part-time job at a florist 3 mornings a week, which she told me she didn't mind because she had always liked flowers. Miss Chen filed a motion to recover my legal and investigative costs from the restitution fund on the basis that my brother's fraudulent lawsuit had directly caused me to incur them. The motion was granted. I received a check for just over $26,000, which I used to furnish the rest of my townhouse and start an emergency fund, and which felt like the most honest money I had ever held. 6 months after the sentencing, on a Saturday in September, I was sitting on my back patio watching the light change over the small garden I had planted in the spring when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mother. Could we have coffee this week? Just you and me. Somewhere neutral. I looked at it for a while. I thought about my father's old chair and the pot roast smell and the folder on the table, and I thought about her voice on the phone saying he would have been furious, and I thought about the fact that she had called me on a Thursday evening and been honest with me when she did not have to be. Tuesday at 11, I wrote back. I know a place near my office. She was there when I arrived, already seated, already holding a menu she was not reading. She looked smaller than I remembered. She looked like a woman who had been forced to learn several true things about herself in a short period of time, which is an exhausting way to look. We did not resolve everything. We were not going to resolve everything over 1 cup of coffee, but she apologized, directly and without qualification, and I told her I heard her, and we talked for an hour and a half about my father, who we both missed in ways that were probably more similar than we had ever admitted to each other. When we were putting on our coats to leave, she reached out and touched my arm, just briefly. He would have been so proud of you, she said. Not just for the house, for all of it. I walked back to my office in the September sun, and I thought about my father's saying, the one about building things with your own hands. He was right about that. He was also right about something he said less often, but that I had held on to since I was small, which was that knowing the truth is only useful if you're willing to do something with it. I had done something with it. The truth was no longer someone else's leverage. It was mine. My townhouse was mine. My career, my record, my name in the industry mine. Untouched. I had been a daughter who was supposed to be grateful and small and manageable. I had been a resource, a utility, a problem to be redistributed. I had been accused of taking what I had never been given, and had been threatened with losing what I had genuinely earned. And when the people who were supposed to protect me decided to become my opposition instead, I did not shrink. I opened my laptop. I read the numbers. I followed the money. Some people call what I do a skill. My father called it a gift. My brother called it a threat. He was right about that one. It was. And unlike everything else he tried to claim for himself, that was something I had earned completely on my own, and no one was ever going to take it away from me.